Hi, this is Andy with the Master of General Knowledge podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Today's podcast is in relation to recreational vehicles, specifically insurance, and even more specific, damages to your RV and insurance claims. In our previous podcast, we had a sort of a general knowledge of insurance podcast covering liability and comprehensive insurance for your RV and some information on how that works. Now we're going to get more specific into, if you had to file a claim for damages to your motorhome, your coach. The RV policies, let's just look at two situations here. One is damage caused by a collision or that results in like impact damage. And then there's damage caused by, a weather event or water intrusion or something to that effect. We see a lot of this water issue problem in one of the companies I own is Composet Products LLC, and in this business we manufacture repair kits for sidewalls of RVs, for roofs, walls, and floors. We see a tremendous amount of delamination issues in these composite wall systems. So I guess we'll start here. Because many times I get called by people who say, hey, I have water damage in my RV. I went to my insurance company. They would not cover it. They said that I did not caulk and seal the unit properly, that it's incidental damage due to manufacturing or failure of maintaining the RV. And it always, not always, but many times points back to the owner's manual or the documentation that came with the RV that says you have to caulk and seal your RV, every 6 months. I think minimum I see is 1 year, but many of these things say twice a year or every 6 months, you have to caulk and seal it. And you have to document that, take it somewhere and have a receipt saying the vehicle was caulked and sealed, let's say by an RV repair facility, or at least show, the purchase of caulks and tubes and, tube caulking and materials for you doing it yourself, and maybe even some photographs. So we get people calling up and say, hey, I didn't realize it, took the cover off this spring, and I have a big bubble under the window. Must have been caused by moisture over the winter. My insurance company's not covering it. What can I do? And my answer is, you're going to have to prove to them that you diligently maintained all the seals and sealing areas around the RV. So first thing to you is, keep records and seal it. So RVs are not boats. They're more like garden sheds. They leak, they move, they vibrate, they distort when they're driving, and you go through a rainstorm, water can get in the wall through many areas that, where the caulking is not robust enough or is, lack of maintenance, and water gets in that wall and the plywood delaminates. So really for water damage and these type of things, you have to point to a specific weather event or what's called the cause of loss. Hey, we had a, thunderstorm, or we had a hurricane come through on, this date and this time, and it tore off the roof vent and water got into the coach. So you've got to pick not pick, but you have to know what weather event took place at what time and what day, and then pinpoint the damage relative to that weather event. It can be hard to do, but this is important. It's even worth, keeping track on a log book that you might keep for your RV as to when storms roll through. We had high wind event. Last week my RV is stored outside at a storage facility. I'm not going to be over there for another couple of weeks. You go over there and you find that a branch has penetrated one of the plastic roof vents, and now you've got water and damage in there. Now you have it in your record book that there was a storm event on that date, and you can potentially pinpoint the damage, cause of loss to the specific weather event. There are some things there to be cautious of. You have to be diligent. Most policies read that your responsibility to mitigate damages if something has happened or occurred, a cause of loss event took place. So if you had a wind event and you knew there was a wind event and damage was caused in the general area to houses, homes, and property, and you didn't go check on your RV for 2 weeks, and when you finally did, you found out that there was a 3-inch tree branch poking through the side of it, and water had got in and damaged the interior, you may be held, uncovered because you did not mitigate the problem or identify the problem. So you got to keep an eye on these things if you want to ever claim damages due to weather events. You really have to be specific and pinpoint when and why, and then have documentation that you have maintained the vehicle, per the manufacturer's requirements or specifications, and document that through receipts and so forth. That's kind of the part one, and where I see most of these claims being denied, but where most of the issues happen. The next thing to discuss and think about is damage caused by a collision. And there's auto adjusters. Your car gets into an accident, you take it to the body shop, or the adjuster comes out to see you. He has a pretty good checklist and process to figure out what's wrong with that car. The body shops are usually experts in these things, in these areas, maybe even a specific brand, and they can typically catch all the damage pretty reasonably. However, RVs are very unique, and every RV is somewhat different from the next one. Some have the rear bed, some have the queen bed, there's different configurations, and to some extent they're all hand built. And there's not a lot of adjusters, in my experience and opinion, out there that understand the coach of the RV. You get into a collision, and a front end collision, let's say it's even a minor fender bender, and the square box or the coach part where you live in looks fine, but it might have gotten jostled or impacted enough that there was such a shock that it tore out some screws or loosened a joint or broke a caulk line. And most of these adjusters don't go over the coach part with a fine-tooth comb unless they can visibly see a huge problem. So you really need to have the thing thoroughly inspected. If damage does get to the, it impacts the fiberglass body or sheet metal body of the coach, that's kind of a custom piece, that's a whole different story too. Many of these units, let's take a Class C that has the composite fiberglass wall, which is a continuous wall, floor, and ceiling units. They're manufactured in a factory with a continuous sheet of fiberglass front to back. Very difficult, if not impossible, to fix a gouge, crack, scratch, or penetration in that wall. It basically, to return it to factory condition, most likely needs the wall replaced. This is my opinion, being around these vehicles quite a bit. RV insurance companies are going to probably want to patch it, and it's very hard to match the texture of the fiberglass, and very costly to fix that. So that's an issue if there's an impact, damage, puncture in these sidewalls. Other things that occur to the body in theft, we see with theft of the vehicles, and they steal some stuff. They cut the wiring. They cut the wiring to the generator. They cut the wiring to the refrigerator. They pull these units out. The wires are left cut and dangling. Not easy to splice those wires and lengthen them, and that's not back to factory original. You pretty much would have to disassemble the walls, take everything apart, and feed new wires through the whole coach in order to have a congruent, continuous wiring system like it came from the factory. So these are some of the things to think about when you're looking to file a claim for damages to your RV. Back to the impact thing also. These refrigerators and washer and dryers and television sets, microwave ovens, and all the electronics in these RVs have circuit boards that are very expensive and very delicate. And it doesn't take a huge impact to possibly, cause damage to some of these things. So you have to check all your equipment. After a collision, you have to make sure everything starts up, all the lights work, all the functions for the devices work correctly. And that's pretty important. One of our companies, Proformance Services, we do some insurance evaluations. We're not public adjusters. I'm an independent adjuster working for carriers and companies in property and loss. But through one of our companies, like the Composite Products, where we do the RV repair systems, we have Proformance Services, and we've done some estimates for people regarding damage to the coach and the body. And helping people reach settlements with insurance companies. Not a lot of adjusters out there able to do this work, so you've got to be diligent and be careful. that covers the basics of these two losses that you might occur with your RV and how you might go about assisting in the claims process. If you need more information, you can visit us at www.masterofgeneralknowledge.com. Leave some comments, ask some questions. We're more than happy to revisit this topic. Again, this is Andy, masterofgeneralknowledge.com podcast. Thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something today.